Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to another session of Styles and Smiles. Today we're going to have something different, and it isn't me. To my right here is Michael Bonner.
How do you do?
He hails from England, but he's been in the States. He came across the pond 3-4 decades ago, and he's still here.
1983.
1983. So there was a local public radio station that had him on for a half hour, an hour, called Bonner's Bits. And I thought, I gotta find this guy. So I called him up, what was that, around Christmas, Halloween?
91.
But Christmas time,
90.
right?
Christmas, yeah.
And invited him out for Christmas dinner, and the rest is history.
And at that time, my mother, bless her cotton socks, used to send me a Christmas pudding and chocolate and loose tea and socks. And I took them all to Smiley's place out in the country, and we had a whale of a time, didn't we?
Yes.
I remember that huge kitchen range, and the house was as warm as toast.
Yeah, we lived on a farm southwest of New Ulm. Us 5 kids, Mom and I, my wife and I. And we weren't the fancy folks, but we were well-to-do. You know what I mean? We had
Yes,
gloves
exactly.
and had no running water. You had to dip that out of the cistern and heat it. And 2 wash machines, one for washing, one for the wringer washers, and one for rinsing.
Well, I only got my septic tank in, 2013.
Yeah, think of that. You'll catch up to us
Yeah,
Americans
I'll bet that,
pretty
yeah.
soon. So anyway, across the pond.
So you mentioned, when you told me about this, you mentioned the band played Waltzing Matilda. And that's the name of the song, the band played Waltzing Matilda. And I ended up picking out 3 war songs with the war in Ukraine, and they're all anti-war, but then I changed my mind, and we're going to have one that's in a little lighter vein at the end.
Okay.
But the 2 war songs, and this was written by a Scottish guy called Eric Bogle, who later moved to Australia. And it's about the Australian soldiers fighting in World War I.
World War I, okay. Do you
Oh,
remember?
no, World War II, isn't it? Yes, yeah. Oh, no, sorry, 1915. I had it right.
Do you know what country they were stationed in Europe?
Italy, Gallipoli.
Italy.
Yeah, Gallipoli.
So, should I leave you alone? You want to stand up and...
I'm going to stand up, but I've just got to figure out the key. Yeah, da, 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 da. Yeah, there we go.
Have at it, Michael.
All right.
All the way from across the pond.
Now when I was a young man, I carried me pack, and I lived the free life of the rover. From the Murray's green basin to the dusty outback, well, I waltzed my Matilda all over. Then in 1915, my country said, "Son, it's time you stopped rambling, there's work to be done." So they gave me a tin hat, and they gave me a gun, and they marched me away to the war. And the band played Waltzing Matilda as the ship pulled away from the quay. And amidst all the cheers, the flag waving and tears, we sailed off for Gallipoli. Oh, how well I remember that terrible day, how our blood stained the sand and the water, and of how in that hell that they called Suvla Bay, we were butchered like lambs at the slaughter. Johnny Turk, he was waiting, he'd primed himself well, He showered us with bullets and he rained us with shell. And in 5 minutes flat, he'd blown us all to hell. Nearly blew us right back to Australia. But the band played Waltzing Matilda when we stopped to bury our slain. We buried ours and the Turks buried theirs. Then we started all over again. And those that were left, well, we tried to survive in that mad world of blood, death, and fire. And for 10 weary weeks I kept myself alive, though around me the corpses piled higher. Then a big Turkish shell knocked me arse overhead, and when I woke up in me hospital bed and saw what it had done, well, I wished I were dead. Never knew there were worse things than dying. For I'll go no more waltzing Matilda, all around the green bush far and free. To hump tent and pegs, a man needs both legs. No more waltzing Matilda for me. So they gathered the crippled, the wounded, the maimed, and they shipped us back home to Australia. The armless, the legless, the blind, the insane, those proud wounded heroes of Suvla. And as our ship pulled into Circular Quay, I looked at the place where me legs used to be, and I thanked Christ there was nobody waiting for me to grieve, to mourn, and to pity. But the band played Waltzing Matilda as they carried us down the gangway, but nobody cheered. They just stood and stared. Then they turned all their faces away. So now every April I sit on me porch and I watch the parades pass before me. And I see me old comrades, how proudly they march, reviving old dreams of past glories. And the old men march slowly, old bones stiff and sore. They're tired old heroes from a forgotten war. And the young people ask, what are they marching for? And I ask myself the same question. But the band plays Waltzing Matilda, and the old men still answer the call. But as years follows year, more old men disappear. Someday no one will march there at all. Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? And their ghosts may be heard as they march by that billabong. Who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Bonner.
Ah, boy, that one, it always gets me, that one.
That pulls on the heartstrings a little if you were listening to the words. So, now we'll step back a little.
Oh yeah? Where we going?
To your hometown as a kid growing up.
Cleethorpes. And about the age, my mother had a grocery store.
Where was this?
This is 46 George Street, Cleethorpes, Links. It's if
Ireland, England?
England,
England, see?
Manchester, Liverpool on the west coast.
The west
Go
coast.
east, and where you hit the ocean, that's the River Humber. North is Yorkshire, south is Lincolnshire. Grimsby, fishing port. Next door to it, Cleethorpes Resort on the south bank of the River Humber. Grimsby, when I was a kid, was the biggest fishing port in the world. You could look down half a mile of trawlers side by side. Half a mile. And my dad worked on the north wall in an outfitter's shop. The oilskins they wear, and the Wellingtons, knives, filleting knives, and cigarettes, sugar, tobacco, everything the guy needed, you know. And he would open with the tides because they could only open the lock gates for the dock. That Grimsby Town docks has, it was built in around 1880, I think. It's a brick tower. It's probably 40, 50 foot square, and it's 250 foot high. And they pump water up there, and then the weight of the water at top operates hydraulic pipes that opens the gates.
Oh, that, sure.
It just gravity, you know.
How high is the tide? How high?
20 foot between
20
low and high tide, and 2 a day. So my dad would be at 2 in the morning opening that shop because that's when all the trawlers were going out. In
Did
the
you ever
heyday,
go-
yeah. Not at 2 in the morning, but I went once in the day, and just being on your feet all day. It's
On a rocking boat?
I see. No, I'm talking about I did a day in the shop, but I also, because I was in the Navy, my dad organised a trip. I did one trip on a trawler. Never again. It was just going like this.
Is the merchant marines the same as the Navy? Or is that
It's not the fighting Navy, that's the Royal Navy. Merchant Marine is just like your Merchant Marine, and we call it the Merchant Navy.
And that's what you were in?
Yeah. And I remember once we were passing a Royal Navy ship in the English Channel, and they have to line up on deck and they dip the flag, you know. And we're supposed to reciprocate, but our bosun got all our sailors lined up and they all turned around and dropped the pants. Oh, was our skipper mad? Oh boy, Teapot Jones, he was a Welsh guy. Oh, I never heard the end of that.
What made you do that? Because
It wasn't me, no.
No, but I mean
Well, because there's a sometimes real animosity between the Royal Navy and the Merchant Marine. You know, the Royal Navy, they're serving the king and the country, and we're just putzing around hauling coals to Newcastle.
So, you know, here in America, you say you mooned them, you know, dropped your... Does the English have a different name for that?
No, that's it. That's the same. Yeah.
Okay, just nosy.
Yeah.
So may I jump way ahead, or did you...
You can jump anywhere you like, dear.
So what was your first trip away from home with the...
Well, it's funny you should say that because I have been 4 days off Florida in a steamship, which this one actually, it just holding our own against a hurricane, and I seen masts like this just get buckled over. But I joined that ship. I got on the train. I never forget. I'm 21, and my mother and father are there at the train station, you know, and I got 2 big bags, and I'm in. Nobody goes for the first trip to sea dressed up in the officer's uniform, but I had to because they'd bought it, hadn't they? So here I am looking like a twerp, all dressed up to the nines with my purple engineer's stripes, officer and gentleman, and then all the way down to Southampton. It's a long way. Anyway, when I got down there and they were showing me around the engine room, I was sick. I was still tied up to the key. We hadn't moved an inch. And it's just here.
Yeah,
but for the rest of the trip, when we got in that hurricane, it's like, yeah, come on.
And you were still sitting there. So,
Oh, boy.
in our passing or knowing one another, didn't you go to Central America too, or pick up bananas, or what was that banana story?
Well, we went all over with bananas. And in that first boat, it's funny, the other day you were talking about something at 55 degrees or something. You had to keep, the cheese.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, we had ammonia refrigeration, which is deadly if there's a leak. And we had to keep the bananas at between 55 and 55 and a half. Because this is multi-billions of dollars if they go the wrong way, and they've got to hit the supermarket at the precise. So that's what we did. And I may be exaggerating, but it was a couple of degrees, either around 54 or 55. And there was tarantula spiders in there, you know.
No, I don't know. I don't want to
Well,
see. I know.
Yeah, because I had to go and check the temperatures, you know. That was part of my logbook. Elders and Fife. Went through the Panama Canal up to Los Angeles, where we got... this bar looked like it was closed. There was all plywood on the windows, but it was open. And I asked them, they said, oh, somebody threw a bomb in here last week. And then we were going downtown. Well, the owner of the bar, a woman, said, do you want to ride? And she said, sure. And she had a big Cadillac or something like that. And she was waiting to get out onto the street, but there was a car in front of her. And she got impatient. She just rammed into it. I mean, not hard, but...
Right.
You know, this is just, for an Englishman, this is just, I can't believe it, you know.
I can't comprehend what's going on. So anyway, back to your bananas. Here's what I was going to ask you. Or did you want to finish something?
No, I just see a mental picture of all these people with 40-pound boxes of bananas on their heads with a long chain, and they get a little tally, like not a real coin, you know, but and then they cash those in at the end of the day. But there's little kids and old women. They're all, for pay.
So were they green or yellow when they're picked?
Green.
They are green.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Okay.
You want another song?
Right. Yes, I do.
All right, another anti-war song, and it's about, and it's true this, and I'm not sure how it happened in Ireland, but anyway, in England, when the king is desperate for soldiers, you could be had by, in your beer mug, they dropped a shilling, and then you had taken the king's shilling, and so you were enlisted. But so they got to be putting glass bottoms on there. And I had a pewter mug with a glass bottom, and that was the reason, so they could see. But here, he's just down by the beach, and he's offering him 10 guineas to join up. And he's, well, no, I don't think so. We could be dead in the morning, you know.
You're not yanking my chain when they had a shilling in the bottom of the beer glass?
The king's shilling, that's what it was known of, yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah, it is. Well,
At a
it's the
bar when
same
you're
thing with the drunken sailors. They passed out, they just hauled them onto a ship. Because they couldn't really argue. They were short crew, so anyway. I don't know why this has got written by Bob Dylan, but it's not at all. And I'm sorry, I can't remember who wrote it. Key of G, start on B.
Here, I can give you a note off of this.
Yeah, da 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 da.
Show the camera what you have in your hand.
Oh, it's just a tuning fork that I use for my fiddle. Yeah, or... Oh, here we
I'll let you go. Yep. Wow, even I heard that.
And if I could do it down there...
Can you hear that? Yeah.
Anyway, that's 440 hertz.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so this is called Arthur McBride.
And if you can, look up a little.
Okay.
Arthur McBride.
And that's the bane of my life. The songs I was singing 50 years ago that I know off by heart, and yet I still forget the words. So forgive me, but...
You are forgiven.
All right. All right, here we go. Oh, me and me cousin one, Arthur McBride, as we went a-walking down by the seaside. Mark now what followed and what did betide, for it being on Christmas morning. Now for recreation we went on a tramp, and we met Sergeant Napper and Corporal Vamp, and a little wee drummer intending to camp, for the day being pleasant and charming. I think I'll go a little higher. La la. Good morning, the sergeant he cried, and the same to you, gentlemen, we did reply, intending no harm meant, but meant to pass by, for it being on Christmas morning. But says he, me fine fellows, if you will enlist, here's 10 guineas in gold I'll stick in your fist, and a crown in the bargain for to kick up the dust, and to drink the king's health in the morning. Then the kind of salesman takes over. He said, for a soldier he leads a very fine life, and he always is blessed with a charming young wife, and he pays all his debts without sorrow or strife, and he always lives pleasant and charming. And a soldier, he always is decent and clean, in the finest of clothing is constantly seen, while other poor fellows goes dirty and mean, and sup on thin gruel in the morning. But says Arthur, I wouldn't be proud of your clothes, for you've only the lend of them, as I suppose. But you dare not change 'em for one night, for you know if you do, you'll be flogged in the morning. And although that we're single and free, we take great delight in our own company. We have no desire strange places to see, although that your offers are charming. And we have no desire to take your advance. All hazards and dangers we barter on chance, for you'd have no scruples for to send us to France, where we would get shot without warning. Oh no, says the sergeant, I'll have no such chat, and neither will I take it from snappy young brats. For if you insult me with one other word, I'll cut off your heads in the morning. And Arthur and we soon drew our hogs, and we scarce give 'em time to draw their own blades, when a trusty shillelagh came over their head, and bid them take that as fair warning. morning. And their rusty old rapiers that hung by the sides, we flung them as far as we could in the tide. Now take them up, devils, cried Arthur McBride, and temper their edge in the morning. And the little wee drummer, we flattened his bow, and we made a football of his rowdy-dow-dow, and bade it a tedious returning. And we, having no money, paid them off in cracks. We paid no respect to their two bloody backs. We lathered them there like a pair of wet sacks, and left 'em for dead in the morning. And so, to conclude and to finish disputes, we obligingly asked if they wanted recruits, for we with the lads would give 'em hard cloots, and bid 'em look sharp in the morning. Oh, me and me cousin, one Arthur McBride, as we went a-walking down by the seaside. Now mark what followed, and what did betide, for it being on Christmas morning.
Yes, Michael.
Oh, hello.
Where'd you learn to sing so well? You mentioned
About the third year of my apprenticeship, that was in a factory in Gainsborough between 1964 and 68, I met a Scottish guy at the technical college. In those days, we had a day a week we went to tech college, and there I met Mike White, who started the Bothy Club, folk club with me. And well, I had the voice already, but then it was just the folk genre. This what do you call the banjo? Words just not country music, but
bluegrass.
Bluegrass. It's the way they sing has got just a very special way they bend the notes around, and it's typically bluegrass. And the same, but there's lots of different styles of folk music. You know, there's clubs in every town.
Is Irish very similar to what you're doing?
Yes, I mean, over the centuries, it's evolved separately, you know, but yes, the same kind of thing. The English tunes you can recognize, the Irish tunes you can recognize, the Scottish, you know, the Scottish bagpipes.
So I want to go back slightly to your merchant marine days. You were telling me when you were coming back, being at sea for many moons or whatever.
I know what you're going to say, the smell.
Yes,
Yeah. Well, this
lead up to
company
that.
sailed out of Liverpool. It was called Palm Line, and we went down the west coast of Africa, up the River Congo once. That was. They don't sail at night because the current is so fast. So we're about 30 miles upriver, and we anchor, and there's another ship, an American ship, anchored. So we get in the rowboat, 6 sailors in a rowboat against the current. But we have a little diesel engine, 1-cylinder diesel, and it's chuk, 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 chuk. And the thing dies, doesn't it? Oh, sweaty equatorial jungle, the sweat dripping off these guys. And what it was, inside this little fuel tank, there was a flake of paint had just lodged over the outlet pipe. And they'd got it hooked up, and we'd start chuk, 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 chuk. But we swapped movies anyway. That's what we swapped movies.
What was the American ship doing way up there?
Oh, same as us. We were going up to a sawmill for plywood and some exquisite lumber. You know, the stuff that they put under a pallet, you know, just to cushion it, were beautiful, like oak with a black streak through it. Yeah.
Okay. Then when you headed back to,
Oh, then we headed back. Yeah, I know what you're going. The third engineer wanted a parrot, and the pilot came out to the mouth of the river when we entered the Congo, and we just kind of could see him, and we didn't even drop the hook. He had a tea chest of all his belongings, and they just hoisted that up, and he was king of the castle for 2 weeks. We went 60 miles upriver and back again. And when we were at the sawmill, the third engineer asked him, could he get a parrot? And so he got on the jungle telegraph, and he got on the drums, and he sent a message to his little village on the mouth of the river. And when we got there on the way back, his kids had come out in a canoe. They had 2 milk crates wired together, and there was the African grey parrot.
okay.
The third engineer took over. It was a nasty thing, that. It would lay on its back, and you could spin it around, and then it just kept, whoa, you bring blood, you know. Oh dear. Yeah, I've got to have a little lubrication here.
So at the end of the trip, didn't you mention when you pulled into the English Channel or something, you went, you could smell England?
That's called the Channels, and
The Channels?
you're so used to this air, this very humid, earthy jungle smell that gets sucked off the land even when you're sailing close by, but you can still get it. It comes in the big fans that suck air into the engine room. You can still, but then when you get out opposite like Portugal and southwest France, you start, that smell goes, and you get that cold, salty, fishy smell, and you know you're almost home, and that's the mental state, is when you smell that. Oh, he's got the Channels, we'll be home tomorrow. Yeah. Channel fever.
Interesting. Well, you got one more number?
1. Okay, now.
Then that engineer's gonna cut us off.
Right.
Watch him. Oh,
I got to tell you,
yes.
you got to listen to every line, because if you miss a line here, you don't get the punch line, okay? D, start on lower A. D, 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 that's the D.
Have at it.
Oh, I better get it right, else I'll mess it up. I gotta. Very well. Down the long road a soldier came a-walking, back from the long wars, no more for to roam, when a woman he saw come walking towards him, singing to herself as she made her way home. His hand touched his cap as he stepped up to her. Are you going as far as the miller ahead? She said that she was. He asked to walk with her. So sweetly she smiled. Indeed you may, she said. For several long years that smile he'd remembered. What is your name? Please tell me, me dear. Mary Johnson's my name, my man is the miller, and a father he'll be by the end of the year. The soldier's face was burned brown from the hot sun of Indy. It suddenly paled when he heard what she said. For this lass, when he left, had been his own true love. But now here she was, to his young brother wed. Your husband, it seems, he's the man I am seeking, for it's news of his brother that I've come to tell. He was my close comrade through many's the battle, and together we were on the day that he fell. His last dying words, he said, "Go and seek my brother, give him this watch, this gold ring also. Tell him to look after me own darling Mary, the girl I'd a married when the long wars were o'er." When she took the gold ring, how deep she was sobbing. She leaned on the dyke, so pale and so wan, so much he could tell her of her own dead true lover. When she looked up to ask him, the soldier had gone. Now what do I do?
Powerful words. Okay, we're just going to close it out.
Okay. Well, thanks for asking me.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it, Smiley.
Too bad, you know, we've spoke hundreds of hours, and to get this here in 30 minutes, you know, I can't pull all that stuff up.
Well, we could do a series, you know.
Because this guy is more fascinating than I was led to believe. Here.
I'm just thinking of that trip up the Congo River when we finally tied up on the other side, which wasn't too far. It was probably twice this distance to that wall. There were crocodiles on the bank sunning themselves and little kids jumping in because somebody on our ship threw a Coke bottle, and a bottle, a container like that is very valuable, and all the kids were diving in to get it, and there's crocodiles all the way around.
Count me out.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, folks,
Yeah.
Michael Bonner,
Gotta go.
he hails from Cortland now, or a suburb of Cortland.
Yes,
Yeah, you could say
on just above the Minnesota River, between Judson and Cortland.
Anyway,
Thanks very much, Smiley.
thanks, folks, for putting up with us.
Yeah, same time next week.